No mic is on.
Rabbi Darkecha, we began the Maimer on Limud Torah on page Kuf Pei Vav. Kuf Pei Vav Aish Gimel. Kuf Pei Vav Aish Gimel. We spend a good part of our lives, Hashem's help, learning Torah, and it's the centerpiece of our lives as far as mitzvahs Torah, to learn Limud Torah. And many people simply don't know why that is. What's the tachlis of learning? What's the tachlis? Especially if a person recognizes his limitations, whether they're intellectual or as far as just time is concerned, that he's not going to become, it doesn't look like he's on the path towards becoming an accomplished scholar. Becoming a Talmid Chacham. So many times over the years, Chavra have shared with me this frustration that learning and not remembering, and I learned things and they were wonderful, but then they're gone, they disappear. And as we get older, that it's harder for most people to hold on to things as they get older. But even when we're younger, again in the yeshiva, we were told over and over and over again that we have to chaz, we have to review. But for a person whose lifestyle, who's working and who's trying to learn a little bit, it's very hard to do that, to live with chazorah. It's not like you're in yeshiva and you have all day to learn and to review and to chazor. So Baruch Hashem, there are some wonderful new programs out there to help with the reviewing and with the remembering. But it raises the whole question of why is it that we're doing all of this? What is this enterprise of Limud Torah? So that's what this Maimer is about. Of course, this is all in light of the Darkecha. To understand what is this Inyan. So on page Kuf Pei Vav, Aish Gimel, Siv Gimel. B'zeh novin es shatshuva l'sheila shebasachnu ba. This I just was mentioning. This is the question that we began with. Ki kashem avinim she'ikra Torah hu ha'or Eloki ba. Once one understands that the Ikar Torah, the Inyan of Torah, is the Or of Elokus, that it's Hashem's light. As Ayuvan Shekol Mi She'osik B'Karoi, then we understand that whoever learns Torah, whether he remembers or he doesn't remember what he's learned, when a person understands the tachlis of Limud Torah, then it becomes clear that if you learn Torah with the right mindset, you try to acquire Torah according to your abilities, then you are receiving that Or HaEloki that's in the Torah. Because even though, in order to acquire this light, you have to understand Torah, you have to try to learn it as deeply as possible, nevertheless, having this connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the strongest connection possible, which is through Limud Torah, having this connection doesn't depend upon the Totza'ah, meaning doesn't depend upon your becoming a Moshe Weinberger. Doesn't depend upon the results or having some sort of a test in June to see how did you do this past year. And if you pass the test, that means you have a connection to God. And if you fail the test, that means that your Torah was just, you didn't review it, it didn't work, it's, you're a failure. The whole Inyan of Torah is that Avoda that a person is making that effort according to his abilities, whatever they are intellectually, time, and so on, to try hard to learn. V'Yehudi she'amal b'Torah lefi kocha. And therefore, a Jew who tries, according to his kaiches, who tries to learn Torah, as Avodah yiskel kabbalas or, he's makabel that or. Whether you feel it, you don't feel it, there are ways to strengthen the feeling of that or, which we're going to talk about. Or whether you feel it or you don't feel it, you makabel the or. Because you're on the program. That's the program. The program is limud haTorah, and putting your kaiches, whatever they are intellectually and otherwise, putting your kaiches into limud haTorah. That's it. It's not whether you're brilliant. It's not whether you're able to say over Blat Gemara by heart. That's not the Avodah of limud haTorah. Even if you don't remember. Mr. Rav, the Baal Tani says in Shulchan Aruch that such a person, when he's 120, all the Torah that he learned and that he forgot is given to him. And it's a very nice, wonderful gift when he is brought to his place, Neilam Hava. Here's all the Torah. Here's all the Torah that you learned your entire life. Every single word that you ever learned, every single word, every thought of Torah that you ever had is given back to you. And that's even for a person who's not necessarily an amkin, who who's not able to understand the depths of Torah. He's not a lamdan. He's not a person with such brilliance. Umimela hamitzvah lahagus b'Torah yom v'layla. Therefore, the mitzvah of learning Torah, that there should be some limud Torah in the day and in the night, shayaches l'chol Yehudi. That's for everybody. B'chol matzav, in every matzav, not just when you're in yeshiva. See, many of the chevra come out of yeshiva feeling that if I'm not able to learn this way, that my learning is worthless. And because of that, there's all of this stuff going on, and books that have to be written, and shmuzin that have to be given to especially in Eretz Yisrael, where there's such a significant population of guys that are learning Torah for many years. That what happens when you leave yeshiva, and how do you transition from being a person that's learning all day long and learning in depth to becoming a balabas? To somebody that can't do that, that's no longer in a position to be able to do that. I think I told you over the years, maybe more than once, a very beautiful story. I was very touched by it. That I heard this from Rabbi Soloveitchik's son-in-law, Rabbi Marcus. I once in Toronto. I was once there. I was once giving a talk in Canada many years ago, and I stayed with Rabbi Marcus. It was in his shul, and that's Rabbi Soloveitchik's son-in-law. And I'm sure many of you know that Rabbi Soloveitchik had a terrible stroke some years before he was nifter. And Rabbi Marcus told me that he was either in the hospital or he was in rehab, Rabbi, and Rabbi Marcus came into the room to visit him. And he saw that Rabbi, his father-in-law, had a Gemara brachas. A Gemara brachas in front of him. He was learning brachas. And Rabbi Marcus said to him, brachas? That's in brisk, that's not a sign of accomplishment. The brachas, I couldn't believe it. He saw him learning Gemara. He was singing the Gemara brachas. Zvachim, menachas, Tmura, he saw him sitting with the brachas. They did that when they were children, and then they finished on their madrega. So, or if they learn it, they learn it secretly, but not that anybody should see them, should catch them like Gemara brachas. So Marcus was just laughing. He says, "Should I have brachas?" So he said, when I was the brisker Rosh Hashiva, when I was Rabbi Soloveitchik, so then I was able to learn other things, but because of my illness, I'm not able to concentrate and I can't learn those other things. So now I'm Aaron Soloveitchik, a balabas in Chicago. And an Elech balabas learns the Daf Yomi, and that's today's Daf Yomi. Also, in brisk, Daf Yomi is mamish, a dirty word. But now I'm no longer Rav Aaron Soloveitchik of Yeshiva. I'm Aaron Soloveitchik of balabas in Chicago, and the Elech balabas should learn the Daf Yomi. It's a very touching story. And he said it wasn't said with any bitterness or any sadness. This is the mitzvahs of my life right now, and I'm going to connect the Torah Hashem to the best of my ability. So he was a few weeks before, whatever it was, a great genius, a world-class Goyen, and now he said, I'm not anymore. I can't. So this is who I am now. So that's Limud Torah. And Memela HaMitzvah Hagis says, L'chol Yud B'chol Matzav, B'glal Sheb'chol Rega V'Rega Shalimud. The top of the second column, Kuf Pevav, because every single moment of learning, Sheb'chol Rega V'Rega Shalimud, B'chol Mila Shel Torah, and every single word that a person has learned. B'chol Mila Shel Torah, every word. The Vilna Gaon holds that there's a mitzvah deraisa of Limud Torah with every single word. HaYehudi Nidbag B'Hashem Yisbarach. The person becomes connected, is strengthening that attachment to Hashem. Umakabel L'Taychai Od Or Eloki, and is receiving within himself. He's receiving more of this Elokus, of this light of Elokus. V'od Hasaga, with every drop of understanding. He receives Od Emunah, more Emunah. With that Elokus comes a strengthening of Emunah. V'od Kirvas Elokim, and more closeness to Hashem. Umimela HaTorelas B'Limud, therefore, the advantage of being a person who learns Torah, of learning, is Lo Tluya Klal B'Hatzlocha HaChitzonis, B'Sofer Shel HaLimud, doesn't depend at all on the external Hatzlocha, of your being able to dazzle people with some brilliant Torah, or how much you know, or whether you could compete in some sort of an event to repeat or to answer questions. That's not the tachlis of Limud Torah, and doesn't depend upon that type of hatzlacha. If a person has kishranis and kaiches, right? Very nice, but that's not the mitzvah of Talmud Torah. It's not the tachlis of Talmud Torah. El b'chol limud, any learning Torah, sheyehudi misametz limud, that you put in an effort to the best of your abilities to learn, to understand. Lefikach hu makabel asar. You're plugged in to that or to that light. Mishi is bainin bezeh. Could you imagine how many lives of how many bachim could be saved by just the last paragraph or two that we learned? Mamish to save their lives. But if some of the Rebbeim would catch on that they heard that, they would then give a long sikha to explain how this is not true. It said, anybody who thinks about this, who thinks deeply about this, will feel a tremendous cheshek to learn in every moment of learning. B'chol matzav uzman. B'chol matzav uzman. Every single, whatever the matzav is in life, not just when you're in yeshiva, not just when it's the seder, not just when it's the zman. Wherever you are in the world, at any moment of your life. It's not in you like I finished the program or I graduated or I know this. It's not a curriculum. It's not a program of study. It's not college. It's not graduate school. that whole way of thinking that has led to a lot of what we're seeing is that the guys that will learn during the Zman, and then when it's been a Zman, they don't look at the Sefer, they don't pick up a Sefer. And so what happened? You're learning the whole year in yeshiva. So the answer is it's ben hazman. I mean, you graduated. What is ben hazman? So then there'll be some very nice rabbis will say the poor boy, give him a break. He's tired. What does that mean? No one's telling you have to put in 12 hours. Why aren't you opening up a chumash to learn Parnes HaShana? You're learning the whole year. Why aren't you looking at a Gemara at all? Learn some Mishnayos. Shnai Mikra Targum. I mean something. I'm off. I had a rough year. Yeah. How did such a thing come to be? Because when the learning is presented in such a way where it's result oriented, then we're talking about graduation. Then we're talking about finishing the course of study. Then we're talking about extended and intense ben hazmanim situations, ben hastarim situations. Young people being overly exhausted and tired and incapacitated for weeks, not able to open up a sefer and so on. I'm not saying Chalila that that's everybody, but there's anybody who's familiar with our world knows that there's no shortage. And the frustration that parents have that why isn't Moshe looking in a sefer for the whole Nissan, like, you know, what's up with him? No, we were under the impression he's one of the biggest Masmidim in the yeshiva. The Torah says that's when he's registered for the course. But when the course is finished, so he set out to accomplish something, which is beautiful, and he was praised for having succeeded in what he accomplished, and now it's called a time of not having to accomplish, because it's not about HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's not about connecting to Hashem. It's not about this or Eloki. It's about results or accomplishment, not about the act of learning itself, the vekus that comes with learning itself. When a person understands and is excited about this tachlis of leaving the Torah with the true tachlis, which is vekus b'Hashem, so then there's a cheshire that whenever he's able to grab a word, a sentence, it's not a matter of being in davke in this environment. There are plenty of Jews that I saw growing up that spent their days in places that were not environmentally friendly to Limud Torah. But every minute they had, they would look in the sefer. And when they would come home, they'd be exhausted. They would go to a shiur to have a chavrusa. Whether they were able to remember what they learned, they weren't able to remember what they learned. Were they able to make a siyum, or they couldn't make a siyum? Were they able to be part of some big event celebrating, their accomplishments? Or they just quietly opened up a sefer or a gemara and learn a little bit and close it and give it a kiss and say goodnight to Hashem, which is how we lived for thousands of years. Ki kol echad yeh mi sheyeh, because every single person, whoever he is, im kodim sheyaschel lilmod, if before, when he sits down, before he starts to learn, yachshav v'yizbainen, he thinks about this. And even better, v'gam yomer b'peh, he actually says, Hineni hoylech achshav lilmod Torah, I'm now about to learn Torah. I'm going to learn Torah. Kidei lihidabek b'bayri, in order to attach myself to the Creator. Uliskarav elov, and to be closer to Him. And to come closer to Him and to connect Him through this or that's in the Torah that I'm about to learn. And that's after learning as well. I was talking to one of the Chavi yesterday about this, that to, like Rabbi Nachman says, to take what you learn and to turn it into davening, to daven when you learn something, to daven about what you learned, and not just to remember it, but to daven about the actual limud that you were learning, that should be mekuyim in your life, and to see in the Torah that you're learning all the tefillas that are there to connect to connect to Kodesh Baruch Hu through that which you're learning. Just for a minute before learning and a minute after davening. As I b'chol limud sheyilmud, in such a way, whenever a person is learning, b'chol limud sheyilmud, anything that a person's, lefi kocho, to try his best. Yila bo sipuk v'simcha, you'll be filled with sipuk, with satisfaction, and with simcha, and with joy. And not to allow yourself to be broken by someone that tells you that this is not really called learning. What is it that you're accomplishing, and who are you, and what have you achieved, and all of that stuff. Because you believe that there are payers to all your work and effort. That doesn't mean it's necessarily an Aleph plus. That doesn't mean you get your picture in the newspaper, or they hang your picture on the wall. The payers are shenidbak ba'aviv hatov, that you're connecting to your good father. You're connecting to Hashem's Baruch. Shezeh ha'oneg ha'gadol b'yoseh sheyesh, which is the greatest oneg, the greatest pleasure that a person can have. V'hatzlocha ha'gadola b'yoseh sheyesh, and that's the greatest hatzlocha that a Jew can have, is dveikus b'Hashem, connection to Hashem. Malachi, therefore, achrei kol limud karoi, as I said, or after you learn also, and try that it should be b'ritzifus, without interruption. That's a tremendous thing, to even if it's 15, 20 minutes without anything else, without any other thought, b'ritzifus, to just throw yourself into that learning. Ubemamatz lahavin lefi kocho, and try to understand according to your koiches, concentrating. B'tzifus, meaning without interruption, even if it's for a short time, and with all of your koiches, concentrating. When a person does that, Adam yotzei molei sipuk v'hargasha nefla. He feels after the learning tremendous sipuk, satisfaction, and a tremendous hargasha, feeling. Gamim lo zachal lahavin hakol. Even if you didn't understand everything, even if you didn't come up with any brilliant insight. Gamim lo zachalu makayom. Even if you're not a person that's zachet to sit and learn all day. Ki nishmoso his mala ba'or elokisha b'Torah, because you charged and you gave a good healthy infusion of that or eloki, of that light of elokus in the Torah. V'niya gavor v'karv yosel Hashem's Baruch, and you become a taller person and closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Gimel. V'hinei yesh anoshim shechayshim she'ef shelias dovik b'Hashem's Baruch L'lo HaTorah HaKadosha. There's some people who think that you could become connected, you could become dovik to Hashem without the Torah. V'yesh anoshim she'osim ikim HaTorah HaKadosha v'lo ma'Hashem's Baruch. Then you have other types of chevra that they make the ikar of Torah, understanding Torah and becoming great in Torah, but not having to do with Hashem. So both of these are wrong. Both of these ways of thinking are wrong. Those who think that, so my thing is not Torah, so I don't learn. So I do other things, a lot of other mitzvahs. I'm a good guy, I do all kinds of chesed and I do mitzvahs. My thing is not learning. That's a mistake, to think that you don't have to learn. And the other way, to think that my whole thing is learning, it doesn't, not other stuff, and it's not about, it's not about Hashem. I know Hashem told me to, that's the mitzvah, but that's not, it's not the Indian that we've just been talking about. Both of these are mistakes. Shnei hadrachim hem tovos. You can't really connect to Hashem's light without Torah. Mitzad sheni, on the other hand, on the other hand, it's forbidden. It's forbidden to take Torah without Hashem. And all of you know that Rabbi Yonah and the Maral and the Kadmonim explained that that's what went wrong with the second Beis HaMikdash, where there was a tremendous, at that time of the second Beis HaMikdash, where there was a tremendous amount of limud Torah going on. And mitzvahs, and Maasam Tovim, there's a tremendous amount of Torah. Lo baruch b'Torah tchila, which they explain doesn't mean that they didn't say the brachas in the morning. It means that they didn't think about the Torah being Hashem's Torah. Lo baruch b'Torah tchila. They didn't thank Hashem for the Torah. It wasn't about connecting to Hashem. It was just about studying, learning, but not about connecting to Kodesh Baruch Hu. That's taking the Torah without Hashem's Baruch. And we see that also doesn't work. These two don't work. Not learning or learning without Hashem. Again, learning without Hashem can make you into a person that's smart, and maybe you do well on the exam, and you could say something fancy to make people impressed or something. But as far as connection to Hashem, and you're davening, dveikus b'Hashem, and so on, that type of learning without Hashem doesn't produce tzaddikim. It can produce very smart people or educated people, but not tzaddikim. Not tzaddikim. Look at Shin Yud, footnote.
Is it tzaddikim or just regular people? Even a regular person. It's not even about being a tzaddik, right?
Good God-fearing Jew. Look at Shin Yud. And with this we can understand why we see that there are many people who learn Torah. Doesn't seem to help them fight against the Yetzer Hara. Torah without Hashem doesn't do that. Without the Or of Elokus in Torah, doesn't make you necessarily into a better or finer person. Even, of course, Rabbi Yisrael Salanter says that we know that there's an opinion of a person who perseveres in limud Torah, even if it's shaloi l'shma. The Gemara says shaloi l'shma, v'lo l'shma, and that there are curative qualities that the Torah has. But that's when the person wants that. When the person believes in that, and he thinks about that, he wants that. Not that he's some smug, self-satisfied person that can't understand why is it that he's still looking at the same websites after he just made a siyum. Like, why am I still struggling, or not even struggling? Why am I still surrendering to such filth if I'm so smart? You could ask the same kasha about majoring in physics or microbiology. It doesn't necessarily make you into a better person. Lahavdil elef alfi avdalos, Torah is an or elokus. When a person learns Torah without interest in Hashem, without tefillah and without wanting to have this connection to Kodesh Baruch Hu, so it doesn't necessarily help the person. Again, it's still better than not learning, of course. And there is something in the koach of Torah that can elevate a person. But many chevra are frustrated that they see that they're learning, and if they speak to one of the teacher will say, well, you're not learning enough, or you didn't review it enough, whatever it might be. But it's within the story of some failure to live up to the expectations of the program. That's why you're losing this thing with the Yetzer Hara. Certainly that can contribute to a person's difficulties, but that's not the shurish, that's not the root of the problem. The root of this problem of so many people learning Torah and they're not changing their lives and they're not elevating them and helping them to overcome the Yetzer Hara, when they were told from the very beginning of their learning that the greatest antidote, the Sam Chaim, that antidote to the Yetzer Hara, the way to fight against the Yetzer Hara is with Torah. And that's true. But it's Torah's Hashem, not the subject. One has to learn with this intention and this tefillah and this hope of chipus hadveikus b'Hashem Yisborach. She's the ikar Torah, it's the ikar mashapol neged yetzer. That's the ikar of Torah, and that's how you get HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The same way when Hashem gave us the Torah, Anochi Hashem Lokacha, that Anochi is Adon Nafshi Ksavis Yahavis, I'm giving you myself. For those who want the Torah to work for them, they have to look for Hashem in the Torah that He gave us. If they're not interested, if that's not their thing, like sometimes when I've had this conversation, people have told me, even very learned people, that that's not my inyan. So then it doesn't have that Anon Nafshi. It doesn't have Hashem's soul. It's chalila like a cold piece of information. It doesn't have that or elokus. Because when a person receives this Or Elokus in his heart, in his feelings, which is learning bedvekus, that excitement, that hargasha, that Or is what enables him to overcome the Yetzer Hara. Not the knowledge, the Or. Knowledge, being smart, hasn't made people into better people, not in the Jewish world and not in the non-Jewish world. Just take a look at what's happened historically in universities and what's going on now in universities. Education doesn't make a person necessarily into anything better at all. It can make a person even worse. The koch to be menatzeach the Yetzer Hara is from the elokus that's in Torah. Mishal Kech is a Torah levada, therefore a person who takes the Torah just by itself. That's the meaning of Shal Baruch Hu B'Torah Tchil. They didn't say Birchas Torah. It was just Torah itself, without Hashem. Limudo lo yoreh lo l'natzeach es Yetzer Hara. That limud, that kind of learning, doesn't help you overcome the Yetzer Hara.
You're going to speak about how does one feel the Or Elokus when you're learning Shar Shenogach Sapara.
Sure. Yeah. Back on top, Kodesh Bir Habach, Es Mashom Chazal, Avodah that we were just talking about, Mishum Shel Baruch Hu B'Torah Tchila. This is how the Bach explains. It's the Bach, it's not the Baal Shem Tov, not that we have any problem with the Baal Shem Tov. It's the Bach. The Gemara says why is it that the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed and we were sent into Golus? Because Lo Baruch B'Torah Tchila. Shekavanosi is Baruch Haisa Shania Oskim B'Torah Kodesh Tis'atzem Nishmasenu Ba'atzmus V'Ruchnis V'Kushas Makar Ma'aseh HaTorah. Those are the words of the Bach. Simple English. Hashem's intention. Kavanosi is Baruch Haisa. Hashem's intention in giving us the Torah and the mitzvah of learning Torah is Shenia Oskim B'Torah, that we should be occupied with learning Torah. Kedei shetis'atzem nishmasenu ba'atzmus, in order that there should be this binding, that this transformation, that the atzmus of our neshamas, the essence of our neshamas becomes bound together. Ba'atzmus u'ruchnius u'kedushas makar ma'aseh Torah, with the atzmus and the ruchnius and the holiness of the one from whom the Torah comes, from Hashem. That's what Hashem gave us the Torah. That's the Bach. Ki ikar limud HaTorah u'davka k'shehid nilmedes b'dveikus b'Hashem yisbarach. V'hainu she is kavein shebekoach limuda, that the person should have in mind that with the koach of his learning, yizkel lihidabek elov yisbarach. They should be zeicha lihidabek elov yisbarach b'yeser se'ez, as much as possible. Good Shin Yud Aleph. And once a person understands that the tachlis is the dveikus b'Hashem, then he also understands that it doesn't have to davke be this limud or davke that limud. Doesn't davke have to be this curriculum or that curriculum? It's limud Torah. The makom shlipcha chafetz, the Torah that you enjoy, the Torah that you connect to, the Torah that you feel, you relate to. It doesn't have to davke be this or that. That whole idea of davke this or that, or to take some boy that's not, particularly sharp, and to torment him and telling him that this is the only way we can, like this is West Point, and we're going to beat you into shape. And the only way we could beat you into shape is by learning this Gemara that you can't fathom and you'll never get because you just don't have the ability to get. To tell him that you're this is the key to your success, is learning this Gemara, and the boy just feels always like he's a failure. He's not able to understand that. And Kilu, that's the key to being a Ben Torah, is davka this Gemara, and davka these Shiur, and davka this level of learning. And it wasn't long until that began to spawn all kinds of a need for different yeshivas that are for guys that are not particularly great at it, which we never had when I was younger. We all sat together in the same class. It's just, some understood more, some understood less, but we didn't have to. There was no selection that took place. There was no rabbi standing with a white glove, you to the right and you to the left. We didn't have that. The yeshivas were thrilled to get anybody at that time. If you were Jewish, you were in, period. No special yeshiva for the gifted, or for yeshivas for guys who are dumb. From the time that they're kids, they feel that they're idiots because they were sent to the left. So they line up and they get their outfits and they go into the yeshiva for the dumb, especially yeshiva for the less gifted. There's no such thing. For thousands of years, we never had such an Indian. We never had such a way of learning Torah. It's never understood that that's a matter of accomplishment. Of course, there were higher level of learning, and people were brilliant. But it was understood that they went to learn by a certain Rosh Yeshiva, and they were in a class of their own, and all of Am Yisrael was proud of them. We were thrilled that we have such Jews. But it wasn't that less intelligent or mediocre chevra, as far as their sharpness is concerned, that they were They looked at themselves as being failures, or underaccomplished, or worthless, or anything like that. And Memela, more schools, different schools, more therapists, more medication, and a lot of stuff that's going on. It wasn't ever understood in such a way. It was Limud Torah was a schus, was a privilege. They said, no, whatever you learn, it's good. You try your best. That's it. That's the story. You're in. You want to learn, you're in. That's how it was. Not so long ago. I'm not talking about 1,000 years ago. That's Limud Torah. Therefore, V'im loimed Shin Yud Aleph, V'im loimed b'dveikus v'ruchnius, as Allah yipol l'shecha. And another benefit of this is that when you're excited about what you're learning, and you're learning in this way, of dveikus and ruchnius, you remember more. It seeps deeper into who you are. So in the end, you can be more successful with this also. You know that you remember something that made an impression on you, and something that was meaningful to you, you remember more. Used to have the finals in college and cram the night before and get an A on the exam, and the next day if they ask you anything, you said, I don't know. You knew the whole thing by heart the day before. I remember something from the stuff in college or graduate school. I don't remember anything. Not just because I'm forgetting. I deleted it after. It was done because I completed the course. And I succeeded. And that was it. I'm done. I finished that, whatever that course was, in English literature, and philosophy, psychology. I'm done. It's June. Or now, I think they graduate like May 1st or something. But I'm finished. I succeeded. I got an A, or an A plus, and so I'm now getting into the next place of learning that I'm going to forget. But when something is deep inside of you, because you care about it, it's meaningful to you, and you feel that it's changing your life and who you are, you're much more likely to retain. Doesn't mean that you retain every detail, but you're much more likely to retain, to remember. Just like we remember those things in life that made a deep impression on us, you're much more likely to retain. Yes?
If I could sit on a Shabbos morning and learn the Parsha sheets and retain it and get it to Vegas, it's wonderful. I had another experience in life where I paid this Bucky thing, and we worked on an idea for like 3 weeks, and it was incredible when I got this one idea. I didn't learn a lot. I couldn't say a lot of things, but I busted my head for 3 weeks on one idea. I'm just wondering, philosophy, and I repeat it, and I retain it, versus you sit with somebody and you bust your head, and you can't remember anything. But I just have a feeling that maybe, even though you can't remember it, whatever, that busting your head might be more valuable than the philosophy and the enjoyment, whatever. I don't understand. Yes, you hear my question? Is there something to be said about breaking your head and not remembering?
I'm going to repeat the words here. Look from the top of the page. Lafi kocho. You see, you don't have a sefer. So it's in black letters. It means busting your head. We're only talking about
philosophy and being able to repeat it and loving it.
Are you talking about secular things or other things?
No. Torah, Parsha sheets on the Torah. You learn a nice philosophy that you could give a nice Torah versus like really busting your head.
No, let's continue learning. Let's try to understand more about what this is, and we'll get back to that. Okay, we'll talk because it's just out of context right now. I'm sorry. Okay, Shin Yud Aleph. So v'im loimei b'dvekis v'ruchnius as I lo yipol l'shikcha. Ki b'emes has seichel ha'ruchni. Because the seichel of a person is ruchnius. The mind is the seat of the neshama. The mind, the seichel, is ruchnius. The mind, therefore, is capable of grasping tremendous. The mind of a Jew is capable of a tremendous amount of Torah. Yet, even if the person is not necessarily so sharp, but doesn't have a photographic memory or anything, But v'lo yishkach davar, because the seichel of a Jew is a ruchnistic thing. It's ruchnius. Ruchnius is not limited by the regular rules and regulations of remembering and forgetting. Ruchnius is something else. If even a person who has a poor memory, when he has a ruchnistic experience, he can retain it. He can remember it. It's a ruchnistic. It's ruchni. It's a lokus. It's not. It's ein sof. It's not. It doesn't follow all the rules of remembering and forgetting. It's ruchni. Ruchnius is something that doesn't have boundaries or limitations. So when a person is learning is a ruchnistic experience, and it's an experience of dveikis b'Hashem, so then whatever that limud is, it has staying power. It has the ability to stay, because the person absorbed this not just with the limited finite brain of algebra and biology, but with the brain of Torah, with the brain of Elokus. Is a different seichel. It's a seichel Eloki, and it's not confined to is the normal limitations of memory, or remembering and forgetting. Leishkar dover, ki dvar ruchni ena tofes makom, because ruchnius is not tofes makom. Ruchnius doesn't take up space. See, let's say this person's mind is limited. It means it has a certain capacity, like a computer has a certain capacity, or the phone has the capacity for a certain amount of information. The person's brain, everybody's different, and this person has a different capacity for information, because that's a davar gashmi. It's something that's gashmi. Even though you might think that your phone has some spiritual powers, it doesn't. It's a chefza. It's not a gavra. It's a chefza, and it was made by very smart people. But it's a chefza, and a chefza has certain capacity to have. It'll happen sometimes to somebody's phone that your phone says, "I'm done. I can't do this anymore." Right? It's just like I'm finished. I'm tired. I can't think of anymore. I'm done thinking, because it's a chefza. It's a davar gashmi, and a davar gashmi is limited by gashmi. It's finite, and it has specific limitations. It probably tells us inside how much it can take. I don't know how many bites it's called or whatever it's. I don't know how much it can take, and then beyond that, it just can't. It can't. It's full, because it's davar gashmi. Just like a wall is a davar gashmi, you can't. It's a wall. It's in the way. It's a davar gashmi. But ruchni is something that doesn't have bites. Doesn't have. I'm using the wrong word, but I'm not sure. Doesn't have the capacity. Doesn't have limitations or numbers that in ruchnius. Ruchnius is something. It's not a wall. Therefore, when it comes to fighting against the Yitzhara, ruchnius is something which is invincible. Gashmius is now we're talking about who's stronger. Gashmius, who's stronger? David or Goliath, David or Goliath, who's stronger? In Gashmius, like I'm talking about that last Shabbos. In Gashmius, all the guys in Las Vegas were betting on Goliath, on Goliath. But David Amach is a niche ruchni. It's a ruchnistic. Am Yisrael is a ruchnistic people. So how do you explain to a guy that every single country in the world and all the people of the world have been trying to destroy this little tiny place to kill all the Jews, and then once we finally got a little place where we could call our own, that's our home, and they're all trying to kick us out and to destroy us, and it doesn't work. In Gashmius, there's no explanation for that. How do you explain that in Gashmius? The Torah says Am Yisrael is a Metzias of Ruchnius. So the Goyim are so frustrated because they try to kill us. They try to kick us out. They try everything they can do to wipe us out. And it's a lo alech. And they can't find a way, even though the whole media, well, my wife wrote a letter to did you hear what happened this past week or two? I don't know when it happened. There's some disgusting person got up. Some nobody gave up. She was graduating from law school in CUNY. You heard this?
She's a woman?
Oh, a woman, more like a dog. She got up, even without what she said about Jews and Zionists, just about America. You ingrate, go back to Yemen. They would cut out your tongue if you said one word out of line. And in America, and then her teachers are shaking her hand. I don't know if anybody's talking about this. I don't know if my wife sat down. She wrote a letter. They're not even going to open it up. But she said, "I can't not write a letter. How could there be such a thing in America?" The whole world is opening up again in that way. That for some years they were more embarrassed after the Milchama, but now it's less hidden, and still Ubechazos Netzach Yisrael Yishaka, because Netzach Yisrael means Am Yisrael is a Rochnistik Metzias, and they're banging their heads, the anti-Semites, because they don't know how to destroy this Metzias that's called Am Yisrael, but they can't, because it's not a wall that you could break. It's a Davar Ruchni. It's a Ruchnistik Metzias, Am Yisrael. Can't be destroyed. Not with Zyklon B, with gas, and not with the media, and not with missiles. Can't be destroyed. Can't be. It's a Ruchnistik Metzias. So to overcome the Yitzhar, when the Yitzhar is fighting against you on its own terms, then it's David and Goliath is pretty formidable. It could wipe you out, it could crush you. But when you're a Nish Ruchni, when you're Torah and your Yiddishkeit, it's a Ruchnistik Yiddishkeit, a Ruchnistik Torah, unbeatable. That's when you defeat the Yitzhar. It's not. You're an Ish Ruchni. An Ish Ruchni. Ruchnis is not Gvulim and limitations. Who's got bigger muscles? Who worked out? How in 1948, all the Arabs tell this Yishmaelis a little history that she's on top of everything. They're so ignorant. What happened in 1948? And how did it happen in such a thing that all of the Sinai Yisrael couldn't defeat the couple of Jews that were walking around in shorts and sandals and some survivors from the Holocaust that didn't know how to fire a gun, didn't have guns? How could it be such a thing? So they have a thing called Nakba, the catastrophe of 1948. The big Nakba is coming up soon. We should be zeichet to see it.
Jay, you want to keep that? We could put it. What do we want? Give it. Hold on, I'll put it in my cubby and I'll bring it up next week to Shiur. Thanks.